32-year-old Western Australian Melanie Perkins created the online design tool Canva, and it just got valued at $3.6 billion with a B dollars. Want to know how she did it? Me too. It's a very inquisitive episode 470 of the award-winning Small Business Big Marketing podcast.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show, where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of marketing for billionaires. I'm your host, Timbo Reid. You, infinitely more importantly, are a motivated business owner ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. And that's exactly why this podcast exists. But if that's not enough and you want a little bit more marketing love, then you can grab a copy of my popular marketing book, The Boomerang Effect, that I wrote with you in mind over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Big episode today, and I mean big. We catch up with Canva founder Melanie Perkins, who surely has to be one of Australia's great young entrepreneurial success stories. And you know what's particularly exciting about Melanie is she's created something that every single one of us, small business owners, needs right now. And another motivated business owner wins over $1,000 worth of prizes in this week's Monster Prize Draw, just for letting me know what marketing is working in their business. I tell you about next week's guest, who is a cracker. So I told you, it's a big show. As per usual, team, there is marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. Speaking of next week's guest, you and I are going to catch up with a fellow whose job involved making decisions worth tens of thousands of dollars every few seconds for 8 hours at a time. Interesting. And he had very little data to work with. More on him later, though, because right now I am literally bursting to get into this interview. In 2006, Melanie Perkins was a troubled 19-year-old teenager. Not by the usual stuff that troubles most people of that age. Oh no, something much more serious. Melanie was troubled by the fact that desktop publishing software like Adobe, CorelDraw, Photoshop was complicated, was really hard to use. So, like any smart young entrepreneur would, she came up with a simple, elegant solution, starting small by launching a website to make high school yearbook design really easy. That business was called Fusion Books, and it was a huge success. And following an unexpected meeting with a venture capitalist, and by the way, she didn't even know what a venture capitalist was at that point in time, she found herself in a position to pursue her original idea and the chance to take on the software industry giants of the desktop publishing world. Fast forward to today, and 32-year-old Melanie's online design platform is called Canva, and it's recently been valued at $3.6 billion. That's with a B, billion dollars. She employs over 600 staff who have no working hours, no dress code. They have 15 million clients, and here's the really interesting bit. She thinks her and her team have only scratched the surface of what's possible. I love that. I caught up with Melanie in Canva's new inner city 7-story office, which resembles something more of an oversized cubby house for millennials, complete with a very cool rooftop garden, full commercial kitchen pumping out 2 home-cooked meals a day, a very funky, well-stocked bar, and all types of meeting booths, rooms, and pods full of millennials making decisions and getting stuff done. There's even dogs walking around the place. I love a dog-friendly workplace. I started off by asking Melanie what it feels like to be the founder of a company that's valued at over $3 billion.
It feels a couple of things. I guess we've had this idea for a long time now. It's been 11 years since I first came up with the idea. Canva's only been launched for 5, but it was such a long journey trying to get investors on board, getting engineers on board. Building the product was a year of development before we launched our first one. And so it was sort of a long time to get to that point in time. Mm-hmm. And so now to see it being used by millions of people across the globe, that's incredibly awesome. Seeing so many small businesses get so much value out of it. We've got 25,000 non-profits using it. Over 15 million people using it every month. We've got a team of 600 people. Like, they're all completely crazy things.
They're pretty good numbers.
They're good numbers, and it's wild.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we've done such a small amount of what we'd like to do.
No
I feel like we've done 1% of what we think is possible. And so where I spend most of my energy and time is thinking about the 99% of things we are yet to do, and all of the problems I want to see solved. And so I guess it's a little column A, a little column B.
Well, let's get to that sort of the future gazing later in the interview. Yeah. I am going to act a little bit stupid here because I don't understand numbers very well, and 3.6 billion in anyone's language is a big number. Is there a 30-second definition of how someone gets to a $3.6 billion valuation?
Yeah, so I had to learn all about venture capital and investors when we were raising capital for Canva. So with my first company, Fusion Books, it was a bootstrapped company, which meant that we didn't take on any external financing, which was really great because it meant that we learned how to build a company and become profitable and market and do all the really important things for a small business. But then with Canva, we knew we wanted to take that concept of a simple design platform and apply it to a much broader market than just school year books, which was what the first company was focused on. And so with that, we needed to raise money, and we raised money from some incredible investors from both in Silicon Valley and here in Australia. And how that process works is essentially they give your company a valuation. And so when we first raised, it was an 8 million valuation. And so you take in some external financing, and then that sort of they take some equity in the company. And so then as the company grows, their equity grows as well. Mm-hmm. And so that's how the most recent...
to be a number with a B.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good number. So at 19, you had the idea to disrupt the entire desktop publishing industry. Were you looking to be a disruptor at the age of 19?
At 19, I thought that in the future it was inevitable that things were going to be moved from being online to being... from being desktop-based to being online. And I also thought that it was really apparent that it shouldn't be so complicated. So students would take an entire semester to learn where the buttons were. They'd have to read long instruction manuals.
This is like Photoshop and InDesign.
Exactly. And I was teaching Dreamweaver and all of these other products, and they were really, really complicated. And so it seemed really apparent a few things, that they were going to be online, they were going to be simpler, and they were going to be collaborative. So rather than having to send PDFs and large files backwards and forwards, you should be able to do that online. So that was really apparent at that point in time.
Were you looking for a business idea? Or you were just one of those people who were really frustrated and actually said, well, I've got a solution to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd taken one entrepreneurship course in my studies.
Right.
But yeah, it was really a strong frustration, and just it was such an apparent problem that people were struggling with. All my students were struggling with, and so yeah, I guess that's where it started.
What other industry would you love to disrupt or see disrupted right now?
So I guess within our own ecosystem, there's a whole host of things. So there's obviously the desktop-based products like, the whole design and publishing suite. But then there's obviously stock photography, because if you're trying to create a professional design, you have to go to all these different industries. So the desktop tools, I'm going to use things like stock photography sites, font sites, illustration sites, having to collaborate and go backwards and forwards via things like Dropbox and email, and then actually creating content from videos, all sorts of different things, and then finally creating your design, and then having to share it via all the different methods. And so our goal was to take all those different industries and ecosystems and integrate it into one page.
You've done that well.
Yeah. But I think that every industry...
Do you not go out into the street these days and go, oh, gee, I wish someone would just do something about that industry?
Well, I think that in my very optimistic sense, I think everything is getting kinder and more efficient and more democratised, and everyone can access it rather than it being just to a few people. And I think that that's happening across every single industry that we look at.
The first iteration of Canva was called Fusion Books, which made it easy to design high school yearbooks. Why that niche?
So at school yearbook coordinators get an extra end of the raw deal because they get stuck trying to create a publication. They haven't necessarily had any design experience or publishing experience, and all of a sudden they're having to create this publication that's going to go out to hundreds or thousands of people, which is a really tall order. And so it seemed like a really great market to start with because the problem was just so pronounced. And they also had to... They also then purchased the yearbooks at the end of that process. So not only were they having a really hard time, there wasn't any software available for them. And then on the tail end of that, the way we created our software, then people would purchase their yearbooks at the end. So it meant that as our bootstrap company, we could actually make some money.
Yeah, well, and that's how the business did make money.
That's exactly right.
Did you give away the design for free, the design ability?
So people could use our software for free and then they'd print their yearbooks with us. And actually ended up with a yearbook printing, a printing press in my mum's living room. We ended up with staff in there, took over the garage and had like our pallets of paper and waste cartridges and these massive ink cartridges.
My mum wouldn't have let me do that in a million years. You've got a really cool mum.
I do have a really cool mum.
So she was like, bring it in.
Yeah.
More printers, the better.
We ended up with 2 like huge production presses. She is incredibly kind and supportive.
So we've really got you to thank for all those yearbook coordinators who have stopped using Comic Sans as a typeface.
Yeah, it's not available.
It's not available. It's not available on Canva.
Exactly, it's not available on Canva either.
Is it greyed out? That would be quite funny.
That would be quite funny. Not available ever. Never coming.
Yeah, no, whoever invented that facial font has got some questions to answer. You borrowed $50,000 from friends and family to get Fusion books off the idea pad, the launch pad. How was it asking for that?
So my grandparents had passed away, and it was actually the inheritance that they had left for my mum. And Mum very generously loaned that money to us. So that was obviously a huge weight on our shoulders to ensure that that could be paid back. That was...
Do you remember paying it back?
Yeah, that was a very special moment.
Was it?
Yeah, because I guess when we first hired the software company, when we handed over that check for the first time, it was like, this is crazy. We're going to when we took out that loan, obviously banks would turn us down and we couldn't get a loan from anywhere else. Yeah. And if we hadn't been able to pay that back, we were just going to work it off. We're going to pay it back in some shape or form, some way or somehow. But I remember when we gave that check over for the first time, we were really worried, we're going to have to make the company work. We're going to have to make the...
You've got to make everything work.
There's a lot of things that had to fall into line to actually get that to happen.
Did your mum think of taking equity at that point, or did she just was happy to see the $50,000 return?
Very happy to see the $50,000 return.
It's funny because I interviewed Kate Morris from Adore Beauty, and she also did exactly the same, borrowed from her boyfriend's parents. She actually can't remember repaying it. So
oh, really?
At least for you, it was a very special day.
Yeah.
And so the business is going along beautifully. You're doing helping all these wonderful yearbooks come to life. At what point did you think, okay, this has got to get bigger, and the idea for Canva really became your sole focus of attention?
Yeah, so actually quite early on when we created this yearbook program, schools kept on saying to us, can we use this to design other things? Can we use it to create other documents or canteen menus and all sorts of other things? And we're like, surely there's other software available that does this. And looked around and there certainly wasn't. And then an investor came from Silicon Valley to Perth. And I had a 5-minute chat with him after a conference. And he said if I went to Silicon Valley, he'd be happy to meet with me. So I jumped on a plane to Silicon Valley. That was after he'd kind of just ignored my emails a few times because I kept on asking him to sign an NDA, which apparently you don't do to investors. But I didn't know this at this point in time. But in preparation for going over to San Francisco, I got my entire deck together of the future of publishing and really consolidated a lot of those ideas that I had floating around my head for a while.
So this fellow's name's Bill Tye.
That's correct.
I don't know Bill, but I'm told he's a pretty heavy hitter in the venture capital kind of game.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
You're naive Melanie Perkins back then, and I'm just going to talk to this guy. He might be able to help me. So he says, I'll hear you out. You'll need to come to San Fran and pitch me. Is that the deal?
Sort of, pretty much, except for sort of the shoe was on the other foot in that I said, I'm going to be in San Francisco. Do you want to meet up?
Audio program, Melanie's doing a weird eye movement and you can't, so you weren't going to San Francisco, were you?
I was like, well, if I say I'm going to San Francisco and then I happened to be, like, I didn't want to make it seem too apparent that I was too eager, so just sort of,
sure.
I'm going to be there.
Yeah, I'm going. So you hopped on a plane. You finally got hold of him, got a meeting.
Yeah.
Booked a trip.
That's exactly right.
And your pitch deck?
So I actually printed that on my printing presses and I tied it up with some beautiful ribbon and it said the future of publishing, and it's incredibly dorky. But I think, it was quite funny. I don't think many people pitch on paper pitch decks. I think they usually have...
Certainly not in Silicon Valley.
No, I didn't realise this. I think I went in like incredibly naive.
Yeah.
The thing that I was convinced of though was that this was the future. Mm-hmm. That was the one thing I had down pat.
Mm-hmm. You still got that deck?
I do, yeah.
Have you really?
Yeah.
What made you keep it? You got a soft copy or a hard copy with ribbon?
I don't know that I have the ribbon
that
copy
needs to be
anymore.
downstairs in a glass cabinet.
Yeah. I've got a few different variations. I printed quite a few copies at the time.
No doubt.
Yeah.
So you pitched Bill. Mm-hmm. I understand you tried to copy his body language. You'd read somewhere where copying body language is a good idea. That's why I'm leaning into the desk right now, copying yours.
Apparently. So when I was studying communication psychology and commerce. Right. And part of my psychology...
101.
it was talking about mirroring, and apparently people like you more if you do. I don't know if this is true, but I was like, anything. I gave that a shot.
What was Bill's advice at the end of the what was it, an hour meeting or whatever it was?
He didn't really. He was kind of. So it was awkward. So I went over to San Francisco. I had my paper pitch deck, trying to eat lunch, trying to convince him of the future of publishing, and I don't recall his advice at the end of that meeting.
Wasn't he on the phone a lot too?
He was on the phone a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So he was sitting there and I thought he just was completely disinterested in what I had to say. But fortunately, when I went home, I realised that he was actually introing me to all sorts of different people.
Awesome.
And then the following day, he actually said he'd be happy to invest if I could find a tech team, which was incredibly awesome. But it actually then was a year of trying to find a tech team. And
is that a big ask? You didn't have a tech team?
I did, but we'd been using external developers.
Uh-huh. Like an agency?
Yeah, exactly. And so Bill introduced me to Lars, who co-founded Google Maps. And Lars knew the technical complexity of our project.
Sorry, just go back one step there. I want to hear what you're about to say, but you've just been introduced to a bloke who invented Google Maps.
Yeah.
That's a good intro.
It was a crazy intro. In fact, it was so bizarre. So when winding the clock back a second, when I was in Perth, Bill had ignored a number of my emails, and then I told him I was coming to San Francisco, and instantly he introduced me to Lars, and then so I had these 2 meetings lined up when I went to San Francisco. Bill one day, and then Lars the next.
Did you ever ask him why that happened?
He's this hyper connector.
Right.
Like that's his
thing.
That's his thing, is just connecting people.
Yeah.
And I think that probably the persistence of the quantity of emails that I was sending him. And every time I'd send him another email, I'd report on the progress that we were making. So I would always try to find a new reason to email and to have said that I've now achieved something, or rather that I had said that I was going to achieve.
So Bill said, I want to give you some dough, but not until you get a tech team.
Yeah.
In order to get a tech team, I want you to meet the bloke who's invented Google Maps, Lars Rasmussen.
Yeah.
And you meet Lars. And does he then spend the next year helping you find a tech team? What's Lars tell you to do?
So Lars, so we had a really great chat, and we both had really similar philosophies about the future of publishing and the future of communication, which was really cool. And then he said that he'd be happy to help find a tech team. But what that actually entailed was a full year of him rejecting every single person that I brought him. So I would bring him people on.
A year?
It was, I spent 3 months in San Francisco until my visa expired. Then I moved to Sydney, and then was continuing to pitch lots of people. And then, he was rejecting everyone. They weren't up to the technical scratch. They didn't have the startup gusto, whatever it might have been. And that was really frustrating. But
because Lars what's Lars like? Is he like a like the king of the code monkeys, or is he like a nerdy guy or a really fun guy? Or
He's just this lovely, nice, normal person that when I met him for the first time, it just completely transformed my view of what was possible, because he is this nice, normal person that has created this company that has, had such a huge impact across the whole globe. And so meeting him was pretty powerful, because it all of a sudden was like, people who are creating all of these amazing pieces of technology are just nice, normal people rather than from another planet, which for some bizarre reason was the way I thought about it in my head. You kind of imagine you're a consumer rather than a creator.
Yeah. He's just a normal guy.
Yeah. So,
So Lars is, okay, so he's now, you're sending all these tech team resumes to Lars and you go, no.
And sometimes in person, if they passed his first test of they seem all right, then I'd bring them to him physically and then he'd reject them.
Were you getting frustrated with Lars? You're like, Lars, just choose someone. We can make them work.
I was like, that's exactly how I felt. I was like, we need to get started on this thing. Like, if you're going to just keep rejecting everyone, do you want the job? And
how would you know anyway, Lars? What have you done?
No. But then he introduced us to a number of people that he'd worked with previously, who eventually joined our team. So our co-founder Cam, and then our CTO Dave Herndon, eventually were able to convince them to leave their existing things and join us.
Co-founder Cam, is he the one where you pitched with a whole lot of pictures from his Instagram in order to get him along?
That's Dave Herndon.
That's Dave?
Yeah, so...
Okay, this is a great story.
So when Dave was leaving, when Dave said that he was going to join us, Google, for obvious reasons, didn't really want him to go.
What was he doing there?
He was working on an important project.
All important at Google.
that they didn't want him to go.
Okay.
And so we said...
And you were just a little startup?
We're a really little startup. We're like 3 people. Yeah. And so we raided his Facebook and put together a story. It was like, Dave, join us and change the future of the face of the internet and change the future of design. We kind of went on this journey. It was quite hilarious. I think we still have the top result if you search bizarre pitch deck.
I did.
Yeah.
Bizarre pitch deck on Google will give you...
you'll see you'll see
and I must say, with all respect, because I love what you do, it's a pretty naive pitch deck. You said Dave. I would have looked at it and go, really? Hey guys, the kindergarten down the road wants me to come and speak.
Well, thank you for your vote of confidence.
Well, you'd agree, right?
Well, fortunately, he said that it put a smile on his dial.
No
That's
doubt.
one of the reasons why he joined us.
Charming and naive keeps coming back to me as a word, which, all startups are at the start because they're going to change the world. And I guess you had that as well. Do you feel like you've been able to maintain some of that naivety, or have you hardened up in the 10 years since Canva's launched?
So one of our values is to set crazy big goals and make them happen. And I think inherent in a crazy big goal is you don't know how to achieve that crazy big goal because it's, by matter of fact, it's crazy big. By definition, exactly. And so I think that that's really important to continue to have outsized dreams. So dreams that are way bigger than what you know how to achieve. Because without that, well, personally, I'm not as inspired. So I like to continue to have those crazy big goals and to be able to take that step forward without being able to see the end of the path.
You had your 3 months in San Fran. You're sleeping on your brother's floor, who happened to be living over there.
Yeah.
You are working out of a co-working space in a Westfield shopping centre in...
Co-working is very generous.
Right.
The food court, yeah.
Was it really?
Yes.
Oh, I love that. I love that. At this point,
it's free. I don't know why more people don't do it.
I totally get that. And food courts these days are pretty nice. It's like you don't need to be a member of an airline lounge anymore because airports are really nice.
Yeah, exactly.
So I get that. Although it could be disrupted. We'll come back to that. Tell me, so 3 months, you are at this point only looking for tech teams. You're not looking for money. You're going to have a year of just trying to get a tech team.
I was pitching. I was literally taking any meeting that I could. So I was talking to literally anyone that would take a meeting with me.
So rejection's a big on the agenda.
Constant.
How did you maintain a belief, a self-belief? How did you not lose kind of sight of the fact that you're onto something?
I think what's really important is to get was important and is important regardless of what you're doing, is to get a really clear picture of what it is that you want to achieve. And it was inevitable in my head that this was the future, and the question was whether or not I got to build it. And so I wanted to figure out some way to make that happen. And we'd had 5 years of experience with our previous business, which certainly gave us more confidence that not only is this definitely the future, but we've got some pretty good skills now on how to actually build these things.
You find a tech team, finally. Mm-hmm. Lars has gone, tech?
Yes.
What happens then?
Over that time, there was a lot of pitching of investors as well, and a lot of rejection. And then finally, money came together, a tech team came together, and then it was a year of development. And then after a year of development, then we launched in 2013.
Okay. After a couple of years of development.
It was 1 year of development.
1 year of development.
And investors were like, what are you doing? Because the whole lean startup thing, like, can't you build it in a weekend?
Yeah. Melanie, I understand Bill Ty invited you to a kite surfing conference in Maui. What was that all about, and what happened there?
Yeah, so Bill had this thing called Mai Tai, and Mai Tai is a kite surfing conference for entrepreneurs. And so to go to the kite surfing and entrepreneurship conference, I needed to learn to kite surf. And so every time I'd give a business update, I'd also need to give an update as to how my kite surfing skills were going. And so despite the fact I find kite surfing quite scary,
yes,
especially landing in San Francisco where it's really
windy.
cold and windy, and wasn't that, not a great place to land.
Right.
I needed to learn to kite surf because otherwise I wasn't going to get to go to this conference. And I guess we had no networks at all in Silicon Valley, so I needed to, like, if a door opened a little bit, needed to sort of wedge my foot in and figure out how to get in the door. So I learnt to kite surf.
And you, at the kite surfing camp, kite surfing conference, we'll call it a conference, you asked to pitch.
Yeah.
It was just full of venture capitalists, investors, right?
That's exactly right.
And were there other startups there, or did you just weasel your way in that you could...
There were a few startups there. But we definitely didn't have a speaking slot. And so the evening before, I ended up rallying a number of people who started rallying on our behalf to try and get us a speaking slot in the morning. Ended up staying up all night trying to prepare our pitch. Then pitched the following morning in front of a room full of people that we were completely intimidated by. Like, we hadn't, at this stage met many people in the tech world, and so it was very intimidating, but it was also really awesome in the end because the ex-CEO of Shutterfly was there and took a keen interest in what we were doing, and a whole host of other amazing people. What's
your view on that? I'm thinking of all the business owners listening to this. You found the courage. You don't seem to be an extrovert. I'm going to guess you're more introverted than... Would that be fair?
That is very correct.
But you believed so much in what you were doing that you thought, I'm just going to take any opportunity. I don't care if I'm petrified, embarrassed, not a seasoned speaker. You just took opportunities. Would that be just a big part of your success?
Yeah, I think that's critical, because if you don't, you literally won't be able to succeed. Like, if we hadn't taken the meetings when we were completely terrified, or taken the speaking spots and rallied really hard to get them, Canva definitely wouldn't be here today.
Wow. So what came of it? The kite surfing camp's finished. You've wiped your brow going, I'm never, ever going to do that again. Did you walk away with a few checks, or...?
You'd think so, but it doesn't quite work like that. Right. So it was another few months of pitching.
Right,
so we ended up we pitched a lot of people, still were getting a lot of rejection. And we ended up raising something that's called a party round. So typically you'd have a lead investor and they take the majority of your round. But because people liked what we were doing, but they didn't necessarily... It was a pretty big bet to make that this random company from Australia was going to be able to build the future of publishing. So a lot of people put in quite small checks.
Yeah.
But we ended up being able to...
What's a small check?
Everything from 10 grand to I think the maximum we got in was 250, which was an awesome vote of confidence, but a pretty atypical round for most startups. But yeah, we got that together and then we set to work.
Am I right in understanding that your approach to pitching wasn't to ask for money but for advice?
Yes, that is it's very correct. So after a little while, you realise that if you, at the end of a meeting with an investor, say, "So, are you going to invest?" or thereabouts, and they say no, then that's pretty much a door closed.
Yes.
But if, on the other hand, you say, "I'd love some advice on my deck," and then they say, "Well, I don't like this and I don't like that," and then you go and iterate that deck, and then you go and achieve a couple of the things that you said that you were going to set out to do, it actually makes a much more compelling reason to continue that relationship going, and then means that we revised our pitch deck hundreds of times, that we ended up with a really strong pitch deck, but then we could have all of those doors open to be able to then go back to investors and say, "Hey, you know that thing that we were talking about, that's now done."
That's genius.
It worked well.
Ask for advice, not for money.
And that's how we ended up with so many investors sort of coming along for that ride, because they were all giving us lots of advice.
Yeah. So you ended up being oversubscribed, which means you obviously had a goal, oversubscribed. How many investors does oversubscribed look like?
It's more about the total
amount of money.
Yeah.
Okay. Are they all still with you, just out of interest?
Yeah, we have, I think, over 100 investors today.
Is that right? All over the world? Probably mainly in Silicon Valley.
A lot in Silicon Valley, but then heaps from Australia, China, all over the place.
So you finally launched in 2013 after a very long time. You mentioned the Lean Startup book earlier. You certainly didn't follow that philosophy, which is basically just get an idea to market and then sharpen the offer on the... Sharpen the offer on the stone of the market? Something like that. Do you not believe in that, or is it you just did it another way?
I think that my philosophy has been to find a problem and to understand that problem really, really well. And I think that, from the years of teaching design programs and then running Fusion books, we really intimately understood the problem that people were facing. And in order to build the solution to that problem, it wasn't something that you could throw together in a short period of time. And in fact, what we knew we needed to do was, rather than... we needed to actually educate people. So, for example, when we first brought our first product in front of people, we use a site called usertesting.com, where you can watch people use your site and watch actually videos and their mouse movements.
Heat maps.
And they actually talk through what they're thinking and how they're feeling about it. And we discovered really quickly that most people are really scared to design. So most people are like, "Oh, I can't design something that, I'm not arty or crafty or whatever it might be," that people tell themselves. And so people were really scared to click around and touch the buttons. And so we spent a really long time working on the onboarding process. So we wanted to make sure that when someone came into Canva to design their presentation or marketing materials or social media graphics or whatever it might be, that they could feel really confident in a short period of time. And then they would actually love it so much that they'd want to share it with their community or with their friends or family. And so we spent a huge amount of time refining that experience. And so I think that contrasts greatly to the Lean Startup model, which was more about sort of put it up and see if people like it. Ours was more like, there's a huge problem, here's the solution, and then we needed to work on the education to ensure that people understood the power of that solution to solve the problems that they already had.
Describe version 1 of Canva in 2013. What did it look like?
Remarkably similar to what we have today. There was a really similar interface with the tabs down the side where you can choose your backgrounds and access our stock photography and our illustrations, upload your own photos. Over the years, of course, we've added a lot more things, so you can connect to different data sources. We've now got a library of 50 million images, a template library of 50,000 templates that people can use. But the philosophy and the concepts were really similar today as they have been for years, actually.
So literally just adding more things.
Yeah.
Amazing. But it hasn't changed. I mean, some brands, launch and then you look back 5 years and it's a completely different brand, but others, obviously like yours, remain...
we've added new doc types. So when we launched, I think we had 7 doc types that you could choose from, and now there's 400 different types of things you can design in Canva. But I think that the reason why it's so similar today is because of the years with Fusion Books. So actually, if you look at the editor with Fusion Books, it's actually quite similar to Canva today.
So you'd already road tested it. You kind of knew what worked, and
we'd spend a lot of time. We used to give every single customer a phone tutorial. So we spent thousands of hours on the phone, actually talking through the interface and really refining that experience.
Just digressing from Canva, although it's relevant to Canva for a second. There is so much to be learned by business owners listening to this for their own websites, because you must spend God knows how many hours and dollars and human resource on usability. And the experience of just being online. Do you look at other websites and go, they're just shocking? They'd spend like 2 hours and get some usability tests done or something?
I think that there's the full spectrum.
Yes.
But yeah, you can't overvalue the importance of usability testing. Or just even putting it in front of your friends and family and watching them go through that process can be really valuable. Or then, if you want to dial it up, using a site that actually does things like usertesting.com, super, super valuable. You learn so much. Just watching people click around and explore and see where their frustrations lie.
Well, I guess it's a bit like Steve Jobs, where he just saw like the computer wasn't going away, but gee, it was ugly, and he found that sort of intersection between sort of functionality or form and beautiful design. You've sort of done the same, haven't you, with online desktop publishing?
That's a very kind
You'll
compliment.
take it. Oh, you're very humble, Mel. Very, very humble. You launched with 50,000 subscribers, or what's the terminology here? A waiting list of 50,000 at launch before you even open the door. How?
So because we had some big names behind Canva when we were out of the gate, so with the investors like with Lars Rasmussen and Bill Tai and a number of other like Blackbird Ventures from here in Australia and Matrix Partners from Silicon Valley, it meant that we were able to get a bit of press when we pre-announced. So we said that we were launching, but we weren't telling anyone at that point in time what we were launching. So we had this whole...
Like nothing, you didn't tell anything.
We said we're focused on... we talked about the problem. So design is hard, and we're going to solve this. We're going to revolutionise this. But we didn't say specifically what we were doing. And so I think we helped to build up a bit of intrigue because people were like, what are they doing? And then we had a page where people could register their username. And it sort of just helped to build that...
Why would they do that? Just out of curiosity, or did you offer a free, like your grandfather, is the word grandfathering them in, or they get a free...
it was just, out of curiosity.
Wow.
So people were sort of like, what is going on here? I'm interested. And there's a whole tech community around like that are kind of interested in pre-launch things.
Yep.
And
tell me about the day before launch, the night before launch. I'm sure there's a big green button somewhere that you push and the website goes live. Tell me about that moment.
So it was funny. I was funny is probably a generous word. I was in San Francisco, again, back on my brother's floor, but he was out of town, so it was just me there. And in Sydney, everyone was working really hard around the clock trying to get the product ready, and I had been communicating backwards and forwards, and we were kind of feeling like we were ready. And we had an embargo lift date. We'd spoken to all these journalists. And I was about to go lay down, have a couple of hours sleep ahead of the big day, and then I went on Twitter and the embargo had been broken by a journalist. Yeah,
just to be clear, what that means is you put out a press release to media saying this is what it is, don't tell anyone.
That's exactly right.
Until a certain time.
That's exactly right. And someone had actually just gone and published their article a couple of hours early, which of course meant that every other journalist was really, really annoyed. And so we had a lot of angry journalists. And the article was also really negative. So the article said a cheesy stock photography site and all these mean things. And I was like, after all this time and all these years of work, I must admit, probably a couple was shed. It was pretty disappointing to have had such a negative reception. But fortunately, it was just that one article. And then the other articles came out and people were really positive and excited. And then the community started to react and they really loved and understood what we were doing.
Did you ever contact that journo? Or let it go?
I can't remember.
No.
I'm sure that someone, like Zach from our PR team, I think probably messaged the journalist.
So you launched. Was it a good launch? Nothing crashed?
No, nothing crashed. Other than that one article, which still is the bane. Things went really well. And like if you look at any of our charts, it's sort of just been growing ridiculously rapidly since then. Every month is always our best month ever, except for when it's summer slump. So in the US, when people take holidays, like all of our curves are really, all of our graphs are really related to the US work week or to the working week across the globe, which is quite funny. You can actually see where people have lunch.
I love it. On Canva, designing. But where are the majority of your users?
The US is our biggest market, but we're in 190 countries now and 100 languages.
It's awesome.
So, yeah, we're used very much across the globe.
Why the name Canva?
For years I liked the name Canvas, but I didn't want to have a name that other people could... So with Fusion yearbooks, I was kind of annoyed with the name because Fusion, like lots of other companies,
very 80s kind of name.
Lots of other companies used it. It felt like we couldn't really claim that. So I really wanted to make sure that we had the .com with Canva, with our new company. I really wanted to ensure that it was a name that we could really own and claim. And I liked the idea that it was to do with design and sort of a blank canvas.
Nice.
And then we asked a French, and we had an engineer who was French, and we said, "What's canvas in French?" And he said, "Canva." And we're like, "Wow, that's amazing!" Nice. And then we spent a while, and I think we got the domain for $2,500.
Oh wow! So it was on the secondary market.
Oh, it wasn't. So it had a site on it at the time, and we, Cliff, my co-founder, pitched them, and we got the domain.
Goodness me! Do you still love the name?
I love the name.
Do you think a name's important for a business?
Yeah, I think a name is really important. I can give you a whole laundry list of things that mistakes we made with our first name that I really wanted to not make with our second name.
Memorable, short, domain available.
Exactly, and not a name that was too limiting. So for us, with Fusion Books, it really limited you to books. It was a lot of syllables, it was a lot of letters. We couldn't get the domain. We wanted to ensure that, it was memorable, easy to pronounce, easy to spell, a whole host of things.
How does the business model for Canva these days? It hasn't changed that much, has it? Because you offer an immense amount for free. In fact, the majority of the site for free or usability for free. Where do you make your money?
Yeah, so that was one of our goals, was that design should be accessible to everyone. And when we mean everyone, we literally mean every single person, regardless of income, regardless of where you live in the world, regardless of whatever it might be. And so that was one of the really important philosophies with Canva right from the start. And so that's why there is a really valuable free product, and there will be forevermore. And then if you want to... Which
just means anyone can go on to canva.com and design pretty much an invitation, a PowerPoint presentation, you name it.
That's exactly right. Yep. Everything from invitations, social media, graphics, marketing materials. I remember years ago when I was trying to, with Fusion Books, I got a quote for a brochure and it was $1,000. I was like, how am I supposed to afford $1,000? It's like our entire marketing budget. And so, with Canva, we wanted to ensure that everyone, all small businesses, can access that for free.
Where's the paid bit come in?
So we have 50 million images that you can purchase for $1 per image. So if you're using lots of photography, you could... in a design, you can purchase an image for $1.
Aussie dollars or US dollars?
I think it's $1 US.
Yes.
We're just rolling out localized pricing right now as we speak.
Yes.
And then you can also upgrade to our paid product, so Canva Pro, and that is to help increase your productivity. So things like saving your color palettes and font palettes.
That's awesome. I love that, because what you can do is you can create a Facebook image, and then if you want to have that image on Insta and Twitter and LinkedIn and Pinterest, it just resizes.
Exactly.
That's unreal. That's about how much a month?
$12.95.
Cheap at twice the price. It just seems so cheap. But when you've got 15 million people paying that, you won't tell me how many people you've got paying.
700,000.
Oh wow! Thank you.
And then then you can also purchase. So if you've created an invitation or a business card, you can also get that printed and delivered to your door in 44 countries as well.
Who's that partnership with?
So we have Yeah, we have suppliers across the globe in 44 countries now. And so people can create their entire like marketing and swag. Also in the US, you can now print your designs on T-shirts as well. That will be coming to Australia very soon.
Who have you done the partnership with in Australia?
So we take end-to-end ownership of that, and then we work with providers that can help do the fulfillment.
Gee, that's good. Just backtracking a little bit, what made you think during all this development time and getting it to market that once you announce it that Google or Microsoft aren't just going to go, that's a good idea, we've got lots of money and lots of people who can do it quicker and faster and maybe better, because that'd be a massive threat. How did you not just kind of freak out at that thought?
That was actually a question we got a lot from investors when we were first pitching, and people were like, oh, but surely someone's going to throw $500 million or whatever it might be at it. I think that the way we really thought about Canva was it was completely reinventing an entire industry. There's obviously technical complexity with that, but there's also like a completely different way about thinking about the business model. So rather than paying for software, for example, you're paying for the ingredients, you're paying for the end products. So I think that was sort of how we explained it to investors, was they would have to completely reinvent and eat their own,
yeah, another one.
There's some expression.
Eat their own medicine, take their own medicine?
Something like that, yeah.
How do you get 15 million active users?
I think a few things. Yeah. It's been really important to solve a problem that affects a lot of people. I think that is fundamentally, for every business, if you solve a problem that people care about, they're going to want to purchase whatever product it is that you're selling. And then not only does that help you to get your customers, but then it helps those customers to want to tell other people. And I think that's been central. So more than 50% of our community are coming from word of mouth. So they're just telling their friends and family. We have 150,000 YouTube videos created just by our community.
Tens of thousands of blog posts.
Exactly.
Some podcast episodes.
That's exactly right.
Now we're talking. I imagine that 15 million, I say that 15 million to you and go, that just seems like an extraordinary amount of customers. I'm guessing for you, you're just thinking, oh, it's good, but gee whiz, we are just like... I remember Jeff Bezos about Amazon said only a couple of years ago, Amazon's at day one. Like it's one of the biggest companies in the world. Do you feel a bit like that with Canva?
Absolutely. So we want to empower the whole world to design. So 15 million on a fraction of the 3 billion people on the internet, it's not even our 1%. Yes. So we say as a company that we've done 1% of what we think is possible, but actually if you do the maths there, we are not at 1% yet. So we still have a long way to go.
Competitive-wise, I don't expect you to name any. Has there been any come on the scene? I can't think of any. I haven't really looked.
Lots of people do little parts of what we do. But I guess that was the case before. There were stock photography sites and stock illustration sites. But our goal, as you know, is to take that entire thing and make it accessible.
So I'm a marketing guy. I love the Canva brand. I've used it. I visit the website, so therefore I could potentially be remarketed to. I very rarely see above the line, I wouldn't imagine you're doing any above the line advertising, any online advertising. I don't see it come up in my Facebook feed, my Insta feed. I do see blog posts about it. Has that really, what marketing do you do?
So the main thing has actually been word of mouth, which is pretty cool.
So therefore the best marketing is a great product.
I think that's critical. If you don't have a great product, anything else you do will fall to the wayside. We are starting to dabble in those other areas, and I think you'll be starting to see more and more of that. Our goal is to get 3 billion people using Canva, so there's a bit of work to do. But yeah, the goal has been ensuring that we've got a valuable product. We've been doing a lot of education we've got a design school. So the idea is that you can go and get an amazing, if you know nothing about colours and fonts, you can actually go and learn about that and branding and marketing for free there as well.
Online.
Mm-hmm. And so, give people value has been a pretty core marketing philosophy.
Yeah, clearly. Getting those tens of thousands of blog posts and all those YouTube videos and now some podcast episodes is great for creating awareness and exposure and getting people to canva.com. What's the secret? And I guess we've answered in a way with your freemium model, but what's the secret to converting them into a paid customer?
So once people use Canva a lot, then they want to increase their productivity. So they're wanting to, as I mentioned, save their colour palettes and fonts, and they've got hundreds of designs. They want to put them in folders, and they want to resize their design. So things that they're wanting to do to increase their productivity sort of becomes a pretty natural sell to people when they're getting so much value from the free product. Then they want to upgrade because they want to increase their productivity and
totally.
save. If you can save hours or days a week, it's worthwhile.
I kept talking to you for a long time. I'm very conscious of the fact that you're probably rather busy running this $3.6 billion company. But we're at Canva HQ in Sydney, and I've just done a tour with your PR lady, Liz, who was awesome in showing me around. And this is impressive. This is a 7-story building with an incredible roof garden overlooking Sydney. In reception or downstairs, there was a proper kitchen. I just need to ask you a couple of questions about explaining this incredible spaceship that we're in, because it is. It's like, is this your idea? Where did the idea for this space come from?
So one of the philosophies we've had right from the start is we want to create an environment that we wanted to work in. And so all the way back in my mum's living room, we'd have lunch together as a team. And that's something that's continued all to today. So in each of our offices, they have lunch together as a team, which is a really awesome and powerful thing because you're sitting down with your colleagues, you're getting to know them as people. And so that's why there's such an amazing cafe and restaurant downstairs. I think, we've had an amazing team that have been working on the space to really make it have Canva's vibe, which, you see lots of couches around, lots of plants, dogs. The idea is to make it feel like a place that you want to be in.
No dress code?
That's correct.
Are you trying to create a place to stop people going home?
No, we want people to have a healthy work-life balance. I think that's really important as well, is that people actually have a life.
The average age out there is quite low, says this 52-year-old podcaster, but there must be a lot of people who just love working here and not want to go home. And you do. Imagine if we walked through at 10 o'clock tonight, there'd still be people tinkering away.
Yeah, it's flexi time, so you can come in when you want and you can leave when you want.
Get the job done.
So sometimes, some people love to come in super early in the morning and leave pretty early, and then other people come in a bit later in the day and leave later. So people just do what they want.
Complete flexi time. Get the job done.
We care about goals and what you're actually doing and creating for our community.
You operate in seasons, is that right?
That's right.
Briefly explain that concept.
So we do something called a season opener. So every at the start of every season, so winter, spring, autumn, we get the whole company together in each of our offices, and we talk about the big goals that we have for the season ahead and show off the work that's been done in the season gone by. It's a really great way to share context and for everyone else to get to know what's going on in the company. Obviously, when we were 4 people or a really tiny team, this wasn't quite necessary. Yeah. We used to get up actually every Friday and everyone would show off their work. And then that got too big, and then we started doing it by teams, and then that got too big because we had way too many teams to do that. So it's sort of been just a progression since those early days.
If I very rarely ask the question of projecting forward 5 years, 10 years, because I think it's a ridiculous question, but I think you would be the type of CEO that could actually answer this question. When I come back in 5 years and 10 years' time to do an update interview with you, where will you be and what will this look like, this brand called Canva?
So we have a 2-step plan. Step 1 is to build one of the world's most valuable companies. We still have a really long way to go on that. And step 2 is to do the most good we can do. And I feel like we have started, we've been starting to do some good things. So we've got 25,000 nonprofits that get our paid product for free. We are supporting all sorts of different local initiatives in each of our offices. But there is an incredible amount more that we'd like to be doing in that space that we've started to think about. So I think that, and also I guess as part of step 1 of building one of the world's most valuable companies, hopefully we'll be a lot closer to our mission of design, empowering everyone, literally, to design anything, literally, and publish anywhere.
Literally.
Literally was my little add-on there.
Got it. Wow. You seem so relaxed about all that. Is there just this incredible pent-up excitement in you where you just have to just breathe, Mel, just breathe. It'll all happen in good time? Or are you just wanting to it all to happen now?
A bit of both. I think because I didn't get what I wanted for a long time, as in I was like, hey, investors, can you invest for 3 years? And then I was like, hey, engineers, can you join me for years? I think that I feel really grateful that I actually have this opportunity to be able to take this idea, turn it into a product, have it be used by millions of people. And then with our team, we're inventing every single day. We're thinking like, what sort of new, delightful, amazing things can we give out to our community to wow them? That's an incredible privilege. And so I think that certainly energises me.
Mel, I've got a little bit of dough in the bank. Can I just have like 0.05% of the company? Am I too late? Is there a few people in front of me?
We've been in a fortunate position. There's been a bit of a waiting list on each of the things, but we can chat.
Cool. Very polite answer. That's a very polite way of saying no. Melanie Perkins, Canva.com. Awesome story. Well done. Love the brand. See you in 5 years' time.
Thank you so much.
High five. Well, there you go, team. Canva.com's Melanie Perkins, one of Australia's great young entrepreneurial success stories. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I loved bringing it to you. I thoroughly enjoyed that chat. Here's what grabbed my attention from speaking with Melanie. Attention grabber number 1. I love the fact that despite being an introvert, Melanie's willing to step out of her comfort zone and put herself in positions where she may fail, but just as likely succeed beyond her wildest dreams. An example of that is the willingness to learn kite surfing and then get the opportunity to pitch at that kite surfing conference, which was an absolute game changer for her business going forward. Step out of your comfort zone. That's where the magic happens. Attention grabber number 2. I love the fact that Melanie got the business idea right by testing it on the high school yearbook niche before taking it out to the broader market. She's certainly one for slow and steady wins the race as opposed to getting an idea to market and, doing pivot after pivot after pivot. And attention grabber number 3, I love the fact that Melanie's focused on creating an exceptionally amazing product that's resulted in tens of thousands of blog posts, a bucket load of YouTube video reviews, and now podcast interviews. So it kind of begs the question, what changes could you make to your offering, to your product or your service to make it the world's best and generate a whole lot of free publicity? The best marketing is a great product or service. Well, that's what grabbed my attention. Whatever grabbed yours, be sure to block out some time and implement it, because taking action is where the magic is.
Come on down. It's Timbo's Monster Prize Draw.
Yes, indeedly doodly. It's that time of the episode to reward another motivated listener for taking action. Simply someone just like you who has bothered to write me an email saying, hey, Timbo, I listened to your show, I implemented this idea, and this is the impact it's had on my business. And if you do that, you win. Today's winner is Janelle Shembry of Homeworks in Mackay, far north Queensland. FNQ for those in the know. And Janelle says, hey, Timbo, I have been a fan for years. Oh, Janelle's the winner. I love it. That's all she said. Not true. Ever since you helped us name our shop Homeworks in 2010. Janelle, I remember that very clearly. I was going through a bit of a I love naming businesses kind of period of my life, and you were one of the ones that I worked with. And clearly you still like the name because you're still in business. Janelle goes on to say, the biggest learning from listening to your show over the past few years is that some things are never going to be perfect, so just jump in, give it a go, and improve from there. This gives me the confidence to try new things in my business over and over again. Regards, Janelle. Yes, don't wait for all the ducks to line up. Perfection gets in the way of production and productivity, and all those other cliches. So well done, Janelle, for you identifying that. As a result, you win lots of prizes. You get a Canva Pro license. That's valued at $140. You get a full range of Liar's non-alcoholic spirits. That's valued at over $500. Say a skincare basins essentials pack, $79. $100 to buy some undies for you and your fella through Tradies Undies. A $50 voucher to buy some PJs, just for you, Santa Enable PJs. A My DNA test kit, $99. $75 voucher to use it on the go sports merchandise business. A gift pack of novelty socks from Put a Sock on It. That's valued at $18. You get promotion on this show and you get a backlink in the show notes, which you gotta love. Janelle, thank you for your ongoing support. I know you've been listening for a very long time, so I hope that's a little way I can reward you for doing that. Anyone else wanting to enter, all you got to do is send me an email, tim@timreid.com.au. Tell me one idea you've implemented from listening to this show, what impact it's had on your business, and if I read it out on air, you win. That almost brings us to the end of what has been a rather large episode. I told you it would be at the top. A reminder that you'll find plenty more where this came from on the Podcast One Australia app, plus my entire archive of episodes and blog posts full of ideas to grow your business is over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. In the next episode, you and I are going to catch up with New York-based Chris Sparks, who was ranked one of the top 20 online poker players in the world. Yeah, you may be wondering, well, why would I interview him on a marketing show? It's a good question, but you'll find out next time. And trust me, it's worth listening in. If you're getting value from listening, then don't keep it a secret. Be sure to let other business owners know about this podcast, which is presented by me, Timbo Reid, and cleverly pulled together by the courageous team at Podcast One Australia. Until next time, thank you for tuning in. Now get out there and take action.